Hey, hello from Liège. We have just done stage 4 of the Tour de France Femmes, and yeah, it may as well be April. It felt like a classic day today, a mixture between Amstel and Liège. Yeah, super cool. I was really happy to be back in the punchy climbs as opposed to the last 2 days being a little bit out of my comfort zone. But yeah, anyway, we had rainy weather. Yeah, very fitting. And a hectic race. Starting on the Valkenburg circuits was, starting on Coburg and Bemühleberger says enough. I think it was pretty crazy. And then a ride down to the La Redoute, where we started the Liège course. And yeah, the rain made... It was really slippery out today, and there was a lot of crashes, and to be honest, the whole day I was really scared, to be honest. Sometimes you just get in your head a little bit, like you slip a few times, or you see some crashes, and then in your head the whole time it's just a little block, and that was me today. So I just kept on telling myself, looking for the yellow helmets of my team. I needed to be there, and I had to get to La Roche with Damie. I think the climb before La Redoute was actually really hard. Some girls going for the Queen of the Mountain points, actually. I think that did a lot of damage. And then La Redoute, it always does damage. It was not so hard, but I think it hurts a lot of legs. And then this classic grind up to La Roche, it always hurts. I think everyone hurts. Descent into La Roche was also really slippery. I think I saw Cecile crash in front of me, and I swear she slid for over 100 meters. It was rather scary. Then we had a really nice lead out from Misha and Blanca into the bottom of La Roche, and then I started with the plan that Damie could go from there. And she did. And she took Cassia and Puck with her, which, is not too much of a concern for us at this point. But it was a really nice race in the end, actually. And it was cool, actually. I think we're all very happy for Puck to pip Damie on the line. It's racing, and we respect that also, so it's cool. Yeah, now we have some long, long days ahead. On paper we're halfway through the tour, but distance-wise, definitely not. But yeah, the vibe is really good on the team, and I'm feeling really, happy in the riding with this group, and I think we can make something special of stage 5 also, so yeah, I'm excited.
Hello and welcome back to the Wheel Talk podcast. My name is Abby Mickey, and we're here to talk about the Tour de France Femmes, avec, Zwift. You were ushered into this podcast with the dulcet tones of none other than Niamh Fisher-Black, teammate of today's winner and the former yellow jersey wearer, but we will dive into that in just a second. With me today, Tilda Price.
Hello, hello.
Loren Rowney.
G'day, everyone.
And holy moly, what a stage. I think we can all agree that we maybe underestimated how difficult the stage was. Loren, you were on a motorbike today. You can really attest to the terrain.
Yeah, I had the privilege of going on one of the motos today, which was super fun and terrifying at the same time. You might get a chance during this podcast to listen to a few of my insights from a couple of the early cols early on the stage. I think at the top of the first col, at kilometre 14, I had already decided this was not a sprint day. We had definitely underestimated how hard this day was. I think in one of the post-race interviews with one of the riders, they said they actually didn't do reconnaissance of this course. So I don't know if there were a few people who were surprised by how difficult it was, because I saw some race previews that also thought, maybe this is the last day for the sprinters. But I can tell you right now, I was out there all day and it just didn't let off. It was up and down. People were yo-yoing off the back, and it was just the nature of the course that made it so difficult.
Yeah, as it turned out, the sprinters only get 2 stages this year because the next 3 stages are all climbing heavy. And we thought today there was a possibility of a sprint. But Tilda and I even drove the final 5 kilometers, and it was quite hard with some technical turns and a pretty decent climb up to a descent to the line.
Yeah, it did briefly look like, from the way the peloton was formulated with a lot of the sprinters in there, and they were going so fast towards the finish, that they might catch the leaders and there might be a sprint of sorts. I still don't think it would have been a bunch sprint because it was a really hard finish, but it was almost something more of a of a sprint, but obviously then chaos ensued and there was a crash, and that just threw cats amongst many pigeons with Vollering's crash. But yeah, it was a super hard day, and I think yesterday we probably underestimated just how hard particularly the finale was. I didn't appreciate how uphill it was and what a drag it was. You said in the car it was a day for Liane Lippert, and it very nearly was. But yeah, it was definitely a day for those really tough riders, and I think even Vollering could have been up there had she not had pretty much the worst luck.
Yeah, so basically what happened all day, the peloton fractured. There were groups all over the place. They were coming back together. Charlotte O'Cole was dropped. She was coming back. She said that it was one of her worst days on the bike. She felt terrible today. Lack of sleep is catching up to her. She's still holding the green jersey after today, but she lost valuable points in that competition to both Wiebes and Voss. And at the end, near the end, with 6 kilometers to go, we had riders off the front. We had, a really, really strong break with Fem Van Empel, Julie Van de Velde, and Los Argist, really instigated by Los Argist. You could tell that FDJ-Suez really wanted to get her up the road today. And I did briefly think there was going to be an amazing story of how FDJ-Suez has had kind of a rough start to this tour, coming in with high ambitions, but she was caught. There was a group that was formed with Chloe Dygert, Kasia Niewiadoma, Emma Norsgaard, Liane Lippert, Blanca Voss, and it really happened because of a crash with 6.3 kilometers to go. They were coming really, really fast into a left-hander. It looks like a rider just tried to squeeze through a gap that did not exist, and riders went down all over the place. We saw Pfeiffer Georgie on the ground. Vollering was on the ground. There was a ton of riders on the ground. Vollering popped up really quickly, but it took her a minute to get back on her bike and kind of get momentum going again and get moving. But up the road, the race was going. Chloe was on the front using that power that she has to create as much distance from Kasia to Demi as she possibly could. And in the end, it was a reduced sprint to the finish with Lippert going a bit too early and Blanca Voss taking the win over Kasia Niewiadoma.
Yeah, from speaking to some riders at the finish, a little bit of more insight on that crash. They didn't really have sufficient signage that it was coming up the turn. It was kind of a slightly strange turn out of a roundabout. I must admit I haven't watched it back, but yeah, I spoke to Misha Bredevold and she said she was really not happy with the course design and it had not been signaled properly. So, these things do happen in the final 10K and things are really tense and you are going really fast, but there is also an onus on the race organizers to make these things as safe as they can be. A turn like that is never safe, but if the riders don't even really know it's happening, then it's kind of a recipe for disaster. And it's not like Vollering was in a bad position or was riding dangerously, but when you get caught out with such a technical turn, there's kind of nowhere you can go, and you had to really be in the first 15 riders to not be affected by that. And maybe she could have been further up, but it's hard to blame her for where she was and what happened there.
Yeah, I mean, she was in great position at that point, and it was we spoke about how kind of technical the finale of this course actually was. Driving it, and Loren, you saw it on the moped on the scooter. There was a bunch of really sharp turns. There was one really, really sharp left-hander into a right-hander that was a bit sketchy, and it was, the tensions were high. It had been a fast race all day. It was hot, so there was just a lot going on, and you really have to feel for Demi because you never want to lose the yellow jersey because of a crash. And what happened at the end of the day is that Voss took the stage, but Kasia Niewiadoma moved into the yellow jersey, which is a massive accomplishment for Canyon SRAM and for Niewiadoma herself. But it's also with a tinge of, just because you never want to take the yellow jersey because your competitor crashed. And I think, Vollering lost a minute and 47 seconds on the stage. And so now she's down to a minute and 19 on GC to Kasia. And I think that is a time gap that is not going to worry Vollering in the slightest come the final 2 stages. She can, if she's climbing as well as she was at the Tour de Suez and the Vuelta, then it's not going to be a problem for her to try to retake the jersey from Kasia. But we also don't know how she's feeling. She was really tender with her hip and her back as she was getting back on her bike, and it looked like she was in a lot of pain. So that's something that we'll update you on that later in the podcast when we have a little bit more information. But yeah, it's the race has been completely flipped on its head on a day that we thought would either be a break day or a sprint day, but probably wasn't going to be a GC day.
Yeah, and there were a lot of emotions at the finish line where we were standing, because obviously everyone is so excited for Cassia, and like you said, no one wants to see someone fall out of the yellow jersey because of a fall. But then, yeah, it's going to make things really exciting over the next 3 days, because like Demi said in the post-race interview after the TT, that they were happy to carry it all the way through. And now they're not in the leader's jersey and they've got some time to make up. We've got some really hard, hilly stages to come, and I'm sure she's going to want revenge, Demi. But yeah, in terms of is it good for the sport, I think it's made things a lot more interesting than it would have been, say she came to the line with a group.
Yeah, it's tough. And it was tough also for Blanca Voss, who won the stage, because whilst Blanca Voss was winning the stage up the road, Demi Vollering was behind and she was alone for a really long time. Voss said her radio wasn't working. She had no idea Demi had gone down. She didn't know what was happening behind her. And so she wouldn't have known that Demi was all alone, waiting, riding alone to try to catch up. And then Misha Bredewald went back and got her, so she was with a teammate until, close to the line, where she just kind of struck out. But it was definitely a weird situation at first, looking at it, thinking, okay, like Voss won the stage, but her teammate is losing the yellow jersey and is losing time. And it wasn't until after the stage that we found out that Voss had no idea what was going on. And she did say it's a bittersweet victory.
Yeah, I think you have to forgive Voss for that, if that's what was going on. But it is a worrying sign and not a great look when you're in the yellow jersey, and you're not just in the yellow jersey, you're trying to win the race and you are the defending champions. Like, you have to put everything, and if not everything, then 90% of everything into protecting your leader. And I don't know where the rest of the riders were, but Vibus was up front, Misha was there. Like, they needed to work a little bit better there. And I heard a little bit from Danny Sam at the finish, and he was kind of pretty coy on what the communications were and was saying, we still want to win the stage and stuff like that. But when you're racing for yellow, and I think Demi has to be thinking this a little bit too, it's like, are we not all in for me? That's what they're here to do, and they need to prove that commitment. And I think it's just a sign of more of the disharmony that we've been seeing in that team, really.
Yeah, we've heard all year about poor communication in the radio during races, especially when it pertains to Vollering, and it was just more of that today. And her teammates not knowing that she'd gone down is just wild from the perspective of a team that has already won this race and is coming with the strongest rider in the peloton right now. All right, well, let's throw to Loren on the bike in the race.
It is Loren from the road. I am channeling my inner Iris Slappendale. I've just been on the motorbike for the first part of the race. I am on top of the official first categorized col, and I can tell you it's only been 14 kilometers of the race and it is lumpy. I think I throw out everything I said yesterday that this could be a sprint stage for the likes of Kuhl or any other real sprinter. It's going to be a really tough day out there, and I've heard over the radio that there's already a 20-second gap to a group. Obviously, haven't been able to see the live coverage. Again, like I said, I'm on top of this first col, and the atmosphere already is fantastic. There are a lot of people out here in the middle of nowhere in these fields, and it's typical like French Belgian roads. They're tiny, small farm roads, perfect situation, or these sort of roads are just ideal for the break because you're out of sight so quickly, which you'll be able to see on the live coverage. But I can't stress how different it is to actually be on course. Of course, I'm on a motorbike, but like it's going to be a really tough day out there, and I'm really curious to see who comes over this climb first. I am on top of the first categorized col of the day. It's a 1.2 kilometer climb, around 7.9%. And I've just come up here on the back of the motorbike, so I got to really get a feel of the climb. And I can tell you it's quite difficult. It's steep. The last I heard, there was a small group off the front, and I can see now that they're just coming over the top. The crowd's gathering here. It looks like the two riders have quite a decent gap, but the peloton is chasing pretty hard from behind. They're spread out across the road. And it looks like I can just see AG Insurance going for the points. And Sylvia Persico just getting over the top. I wonder if she's going to go over. FDJ-Suez chasing on the front. Everyone's already, gritting their teeth here. It's not an easy climb and not an easy start to the race. Only 14 kilometers in. They got a really long day ahead. And like I mentioned earlier, I really feel like this is definitely not a day for the sprinters. It's going to be a rough day out there. Okay, I'm here on the top of the second categorized climb of the day, and let me just start by saying that was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done in my life, sitting on the back of the moto. These guys are incredible at what they do, but I have to admit I don't like not being in control, so it was quite terrifying, but also at the same time exhilarating, and highly recommend to anyone who has the opportunity to do that. So the race has basically just been up and down all day, and like I mentioned in the previous little voice note, don't see how this can be a sprint finish. I mean, I could be wrong, but it's just like, we're almost halfway through the race now, and this must just be adding like that accumulative fatigue to the legs of the riders. It's just been up and down, and the road surface definitely plays into it as well, because the roads aren't of the best quality here on these small farm roads. I was sitting at the back of the peloton for about 40 kilometers, so I could see riders just sort of yo-yoing back and forwards off the back of the bunch. There's a big split in the bunch at one point. I think that must have happened after the first col. So I'm curious to see what happens on this fourth category climb. I believe that there is a small breakaway again at the moment in the race. So yeah, let's see what happens. Standing here at the top of the second categorized climb, and I can just see the peloton coming up. It looks like the polka dot jersey, Park Peterser, has just taken full points with Justine Herrera in second position. Niamh Fisher-Black is chasing on the front. The whole peloton is strung out. Cassidy Neurodome in really good position with Demi right on a wheel. Like I mentioned earlier, this day has already been super hard, and I can see it here on the riders' faces. There are massive gaps, and this is, let me remind you, just a Cat 4 climb. So we've seen lots of splits in the peloton. We're halfway through the race. Mariana Vos has just passed on the wheel of Rihanna Marcus. It's a really tough day out here, and yeah, I'm really curious now to see what happens if this small move pushes off the front, because like I just said, there are big splits in the bunch here today. So a great stage ahead. I think it's definitely going to come down to a reduced group that are going to definitely finish this off. Ruth Edwards has just passed. Riders are really on their limit. Back to the podcast.
All right, we're back. We're sans Loren, but it's me and Tilda.
Hello, I'm still here.
and we have more to say. I mean, I think we need to talk a little bit more about Blanka Vas and her win specifically, because the team may be, have mixed feelings about how the day went, but for Blanka Vas, this was a huge result. And we saw her riding incredibly well at the Olympics, but just miss out on a medal with getting fourth in the road race. On top of getting fourth in the mountain bike event in Tokyo, to kind of come back from that and win a stage of the Tour de France Femmes, there must be some good feelings that she's feeling now.
Yeah, she came into the press room and she kind of, she seemed really nervous, almost a little bit freaked out. And I think maybe that's because she was expecting some difficult questions because of what had happened, but also because she is a young rider who hasn't won on this stage before. And it was a really huge moment. She was really emotional, and she spoke quite eloquently about how she had some tough days after the Olympics. She said she didn't sleep the first couple of nights because she was just thinking so much about how she'd gone from being in a position of racing for the win to not even coming home with a medal. But she really turned that into something positive today, and not just the feeling, but actually the specifics that she learned from that defeat in Paris, because she was going up against Faulkner today, who got the best of that group in the Olympics. She said she knew that she couldn't let a rider like Faulkner get any kind of a gap. And yeah, I think anyone who's been kind of following Vas the last few years knows what she's capable of, and the Olympics proved that to a lot of people. And this just now kind of caps off what we've always known she could do, and is her first really, really big pro win, and another win for the mountain bikers. She also rode the mountain bike in Paris. I'm pretty sure she didn't finish as well as she did in Tokyo, but she was there. Yeah, and so to come back from that, a kind of up and down couple of weeks, she said that I think so much of cycling is about confidence and self-belief, and she said that she was thinking about the Olympics the whole time, not necessarily as a stick to beat herself with, but as a reminder that she can do it and she can be amongst the best. And I think her win, we're going to talk, or we have talked a lot about other SD Worx stuff and whether they should have done what they did, but she didn't know about any of that, and she just gave it her all, and she got a result that she really, really deserves.
Yeah, and for her, she said she didn't know that Vollering had crashed, and the race instinct that she showed today was something, far above the experience that she has in the peloton. And to see somebody learn in real time, like that she learned in real time that she needs to be on Faulkner's wheel, that she cannot let Faulkner go. And she learned that 2 weeks ago and already implemented it here is pretty wild. It's pretty impressive. And she's one of those riders that's the future of the sport. And she's also the future of SD Worx-Protime. She's a rider who she's signed to that team through 2027. And they're about to lose, their top rider. They're about to lose their top domestique in Mayeru's retiring. They're a team that is going to change a lot in the next year. And she's someone that they can really lean on because she's with the team for a couple years. So even regardless of what happened today outside of her victory, it's a huge win for her and a huge win for the team, and just kind of proves that she has what it takes to be in that team long term and also be in road cycling long term, because we know what she can do on the mountain bike and we know what she can do in cross, and we know she can win races on the road because she's won other races, other World Tour races. It's not her first World Tour win, but a stage of the Tour is just something far beyond most other races. So she was in the right place where she needed to be, exactly when she needed to be there. And then she further delivered by beating two teammates of two different teams. Movistar had two and Canyon SRAM had two. She was the outlier in that situation along with Faulkner, and she was the smartest of the group because she won the race.
Yeah, it's that tenacity and racecraft that riders don't always have when they're younger, and that when you're a team like SD Worx, you really need riders to be learning. And yeah, to have learned so much so quickly, and to, as you say, implement what she learned in Paris already is just a really, really good sign. And that almost is the kind of thing that takes you further than just pure talent does.
Speaking of pure talent, not that she hasn't shown just incredible racecraft on the bike in the last couple of weeks as well. Kristen Faulkner had an amazing ride today to be exactly where she needed to be. And she's sitting second in GC now, which, I did say that she might finish in the top of this thing. Maybe not on the top step. I think that would be a bit of a stretch, but she's riding so well right now, coming off of the Olympics and now sitting second on GC. She missed out on a win, but I think it's incredibly impressive where she sits. And we have an audio diary from Noemi Rüegg, her teammate.
Yeah, it was actually another hard day, really up and down all day, no real time to relax and sit back. Yeah, we actually raced pretty well at the front. We were always present and also covering the moves. And then, getting ready for a good final. But unfortunately, we crashed with like 6K to go. There was like this big crash on this left corner. And Max and me went down pretty hard. But we got on our bikes. Max got on her bike, but then unfortunately crashed again with another car. And then, she unfortunately couldn't finish the race. And I, just rode easy back to the finish. So it was a bit of a unfortunate day for us. I think we would have had a really good chance otherwise. But Kristen kind of saved the day with another fourth place. So we keep our strike going with our top 5 finishes every day. So that's the positive of today.
Another team that did great today for, the cards that they were dealt. They tried everything that they could to win the stage, and that was sending Los Aragis up the road. We know that Los is riding really well because of the time trial that she pulled out on stage 3. but they fell short, and they've had a hard run at this race, but there are stages coming up that suit them. There's still many chances for them to come, but we also have an audio diary from Lea Curinier, so let's get to that.
Hey, Abby, Tilda, Loren, and listener. It's Lea Curinier from FDJ-Suez. It was really a hectic and chaotic day on the bike, but I'm really happy because we are back in France. So today we saw a lot of red flag, blue, white, and red. So that was really nice. And we heard also a lot of names. So that was, really motivated. And so today we did another good job. We can be happy about this because Luz got the most combative rider of the stage. So that's really nice. I'm really happy to see her on the podium. And she did a really good job during all the day. She spent a lot of time in the breakaway. So really happy for her. And Evita in the main group just behind Lorena Wiebes and Vos, and she sang another top 10. So that's really good for her because she's stronger and stronger during this Tour de France. So we are really looking for the next 3 days. And we are also happy because we don't crash in the final of this stage because it was really horrible to see that. And a lot of people crying on the ground, and that was not the best, but it's the sport. So I think Evita don't lose a lot of time, can be worst. So we are happy with this, and now we are focused for tomorrow because it will be the finish in Morteau, and it's a close area to the house of Evita. So I think she can be really well tomorrow, and why not to take the victory. We are really ready for the fight, and we will give everything for her. So now we try to recover and ready for tomorrow.
So we spoke a little bit about Kašia's win and Demi's crash and kind of a lot that happened today. But like Blancavas, Kašia in the yellow jersey is something that's also been slightly overshadowed by the fact that Vollering crashed, and that's, technically why Kašia Niewiadoma is in the yellow jersey. But I think it does a huge disservice to Kašia as a rider and everything that she's put into the sport, the years of dedication she's put into the sport, the many, many, many losses, the many failed attacks that we've watched over the years, like hand over eyes, watched her attack and not be able to get away, and the wins, they just never happened. And we talked earlier this year about how much she's turned around her riding when it came to, picking her right moments. It kind of all started at the Tour of Flanders, where she was a different Kašia out there on the road, and then went on to La Flèche Wallonne, which she won her first World Tour victory since 2019. And now she's in the yellow jersey at the Tour. And for her, it's not just because Vollering crashed, although that is a contributing factor. It's also everything that she's learned over the years, how much Canyon SRAM has changed as a team and how much they've adapted to having a rider that, with everything that Kašia has to offer, they've brought in more riders to support her. We saw that with Chloe Dygert today and Soraya Paladin. They knew that the final 10K were going to be super tricky. So they knew they needed to be at the front, and they were in the top 5 wheels when that crash happened, which is exactly why they weren't in the crash. Kašia said after the race that she didn't know there was a crash. She just thought it had split because it'd been splitting all day long. But it's kind of frustrating to see comments about how she took the yellow because Demi crashed. Because even though that's true, there's also so much that went into this result and where she's sitting right now that she deserves all the kudos for the fact that she's leading this race.
Yeah, I mean, anyone wants to win or take the yellow jersey in the purest way possible. But yeah, I think it is a bit push and pull in terms of how much of it is Kašia's racing and how much of it was Vollering's crash. But I think it's overwhelmingly in the push direction. There's a reason she didn't crash. And as much as, we can say crashes happen and you can think they're random, but they're really not. And Canyon were right at the front, and that is something they've really changed. And Kašia has had her fair share of bad luck like Vollering has, and you don't change that overnight. Like, you change that by working hard for it, and that's why she was in that position. And also, she was the one that took yellow because she was the one who's lost the least amount of time the last few days, and she took it over Puck Pieterse because she was better in the finale. Like, it wasn't it was in no way handed to her on a plate. And I think must be a really special day for her to be in that yellow jersey. We don't see her in leaders' jerseys very much. And, you know, she said in the press conference that 1 minute 19 is nothing when it comes to the mountains. But as we've spoken about kind of every day on this podcast, that mental aspect of being on the front foot instead of the back foot will carry her a long way, I think, in the coming days.
Yeah, and that's something that she's had to work on for years. I mean, she went from being a new signing to Rabobank way back in the day, this kind of young kid coming into the team, full of rock stars, learning from them, and then very, very abruptly was shoved into Canyon SRAM, and she was the leader. And she's been the leader since she signed for that team in 2018. And there's never really been a moment for her to kind of return to a smaller role on the team and ride for others. And I think this year has been amazing for her because the team's brought in so much other talent, and she's been happy to ride for them for a change. And she's been able to experience the other side of things instead of having so much pressure on her to always be the one who delivers. And a little bit of that pressure coming off is part of the reason that she's in this situation. Now, the pressure isn't every race. It's only the races that she picks or the team picks for her. So she knew that this was going to be her biggest goal of the year. After winning Flèche Wallonne, she went away to altitude. She trained. We barely saw her race since then. She only did a couple of races, and now she's here and she's absolutely flying, and she's patiently taking every single stage as it comes and racing it within herself and her level, but also, you know, going on the attack. And she said that the reason that they were going so hard is not because they wanted to gain time on Vollering, but because they wanted to win the stage. They didn't know what was going on behind them. And they had picked this stage because they thought the finale was good for Kasia. So that's bike racing. They were racing their bikes. They did amazing. And I do think come the mountains, Vollering could absolutely take this back. But for Kasia right now, this is just such an amazing feeling that I hope she's feeling and that her team is feeling with everything the team has done for her and also done to become one of the better teams in the peloton. We've talked endlessly about their mistakes, but they've been doing so much right lately. And to wear the yellow jersey at the Tour is just kind of proof that they're doing something right.
Yeah, and I do think in some ways, looking back, Niamh Bradbury's misfortune yesterday was probably something of a blessing in disguise, because it just left the plan so much clearer today, and that they could go all in for one rider and they weren't worrying about a kind of second option keeping in contention. And, you know, we can't forget about Niamh Bradbury, even though she's out of contention on the GC, like hopefully she's recovering from her injuries okay, and she can still be there in the mountains. Like, just because they don't have her as a co-leader doesn't mean that she's not going to be an incredible domestique. And I think them being in a really, really clear position that they're not sharing leadership anymore will only be a benefit.
Yeah, absolutely. For a team that is potentially still sharing leadership, Lidl-Trek. Today, Shirin van Anrooy jumped a couple places in the GC because she was well positioned enough to kind of finish with that second group. So she's a minute 7 down on Kasia in 7th, and she's the highest placed rider for Lidl-Trek. And we also have Guy Rialini still kind of in there, 14th overall right now, a minute 44 down, but that's going to be a dynamic that's going to be super interesting come the final 2 stages. And we have another audio diary.
Hey everyone, Spratt here from the Lidl-Trek team, coming to you once again live from the massage table with Irati, who was actually quite the karaoke star last night at our hotel.
Don't say anything that I beat Celine Dion singing.
Ooh, well, I guess some things should stay secret in the team, right? So we're now at an Ibis hotel getting massage after stage 5 of the Tour de France, the longest stage we've had so far. And it was an interesting one for me, actually. I had a bit of a different role with the broken hand. I actually got told to try and have a recovery day. If you saw the race and you know the Tour de France, then it wasn't quite what I would consider a recovery day. We started off at absolute warp speed. Was questioning my sanity, trying to stay at the back and have a recovery day. But I did realize how much energy you do waste at the back trying to go back and forth. But no, overall, I did have quite an interesting day spectating from the back of the peloton. So that was interesting to watch it. And it all kicked off sort of in that last 10 kilometers, which I actually was not there for. So can't give too much of an update. But yeah, it is nice to see Kasia in the yellow jersey, I have to say. And for us as a team, with Gaia and Lizzie still up there, Gaia and Lizzie, sorry. Lizzie will get a big head from that. Gaia and Shirin still up there. Lizzie has been shepherding around our GC riders all day, so she's been doing an amazing job at that. Overall, I think a good day for the team, and I have to say Jeroen did a much better performance on the weather report today. No rain, sun, getting a little bit of a tan here, so it's looking on the up.
Tomorrow, Tilda, stage 6, we get some real mountains. Our first category 2 climb of the race, and it's going to be a hard stage. It's similar to today that there's a lot of climbs. It pitches and rolls. There's a bit of a flatter section, but the climbs are bigger. The first climb is 11 kilometers from the start. So pretty much right out of the gate, riders are going to be wanting to warm up for this stage. And then from the midway point, we have a Cat 4, pretty much immediately into a Cat 3. There's a bit of rest, and then they go Cat 2, bonus climb, Cat 3, descend to the finish. And I actually picked Kasia to win tomorrow's stage, although now that she's in yellow, that might be a bit of an ask. They're going to be more interested in keeping yellow than winning the stage. And I think based on how today went, tomorrow seems like pretty decent breakaway day.
Yeah, it's, I think we, before this race started, might have looked at this race as like a day that the GC riders might be thinking, oh, we can finally race. But actually, they've been racing already. So I hope that they're looking at it as a day to think maybe we can have a day off before the weekend. And yeah, it's a super hard day down into the near Besançon, the Doubs region. I should know how to say that, but that is not correct. And yeah, they're kind of not the most famous climbs, but we will have known them from some smaller French races, and they are hard, but it's kind of the combination of them that makes this day really, really hard. It reminds me of that Rodez stage last year, the Castelline one, with the kind of building into climbs, and then by the finish you kind of have no real let up. So yeah, I think a lot of teams will be hoping for a breakaway day. A few more teams have had success today, but still it's only really 3 teams that have won in this race, and fewer have worn yellow. So there's a lot of teams that still have something to gain, and a lot of them know that won't be coming on the weekend, so they need to be looking at it tomorrow. SD Worx said afterwards that tomorrow wasn't a day for them, so they don't seem to be having big projects on tomorrow as a day to be taking time, because it is that in-betweeny day, which I think is good because it opens up for the other teams. And yeah, I can see Canyon and SD Worx maybe just having a bit of a truce on this day when it comes to the battle between Vollering and Nieuw-Wiedoma, and hopefully sitting back for some racing between a strong break. Although today we thought a strong breakaway would go, and it kind of never did. So we need those kind of key names to wake up a little bit tomorrow and go for it with that Cat 3 straight out of the blocks. Well, in the first 12k, it seems like the perfect opportunity for a strong break to establish.
To be fair, a strong break did go today, but there was just no way that they were going to get any time, because you'd think normally Los Adigis and Fem Benempel in a break, that's a pretty good bet going to the line, especially with Los. Like, she's such an incredible time trialist, and we know she has just the raw power. But yeah, I mean, I think the weekend is so hard, and stage 7 is long and hard, and stage 8 is brutal. So if there's a stage that they're going to want to just not really race as hard as they race today, it's tomorrow's stage. And that's like Spratt said in her audio diary, there's only so much easing up that you can do on this terrain, and they're still going to be racing really hard even if they kind of let a break go. But it's such a toss-up because there are so many teams that still want a lot. There are so many teams that will not be able to get much out of the weekend. This is kind of their last chance to get a result. I'm thinking of like Movistar, perhaps Leona Lippert can kind of pull out a GC result, not a top GC result, but she's riding really well, and she just missed out on a stage win today. She started her sprint really, really early today and just couldn't hold it once Vas and Nieuw-Wiedoma came around her. But they were in a great position today and they didn't win. So I think tomorrow they're going to want to try something. They came here with a stage hunting team. EF-Oatly-Cannondale is also going to really want a stage win. And for them, the final 2 stages are going to be hard to tackle, especially now that Magdalene Valieres is out of the race. She was one of the riders that crashed today. So she's abandoned the race, and she's kind of their best climber in the race. We don't know how Faulkner is going to go on those final 2 stages. She could well be up there, but we're just not really sure. So a lot of the smaller teams, Arkea B&B, Saint Michel, like there are so many teams that are currently going to walk away from this race with nothing. And there are other teams that have really, really high ambitions for the final 2 stages that are going to be really hard. So yeah, stage 6 is a bit of a toss-up. Just like today, we really don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, which I appreciate is not helpful preview advice, but it makes the racing exciting, and I think it is good that there's a lot of teams that have stuff to put into this. And I think I just hope that there are teams that kind of put their ego to one side and realize that they aren't going to take a result on the weekend. Like, there are definitely teams that might be thinking about it, but actually, a team like Liverlula-Jayco is another one who have just done really so little this race, but they have Mavi Garcia and Carolina Anderson and stuff like that. So I think, yeah, there are a lot of teams that should have an interest in this, and I just hope that they realize that and don't try and save their energy for the weekend, because there's a lot of riders that have a much better chance of getting a result tomorrow than on Saturday.
Yep, well said. Well, from Jose Bain, we've got a look at the origins of the Jurassic era and how it's named after the Jura Mountains plus smoked sausages.
We race through the Jura Mountains on stage 6. That is one of the 5 mountain chains on mainland France. You have the Pyrenees, the Alps, the Massif Central and the Vosges. The Jura is the name giver of one of the most famous geological periods in history, the Jurassic. We're talking a 201.3 to 145 million years ago. That fame comes from the Jurassic Park movies, of course, and it was indeed the time dinosaurs roamed this part of the world, although most of it was ocean. And the creatures that died in these oceans became a solid limestone layer. And that layer reads like a time map. Geologists found fossils in the Jura limestones in a particular order. The lower rock layers had other fossils than the top ones. And they found the same fossils in the same order in limestones in southern England. And then they realized that this must mean they come from the same time period. The Jurassic started 201.3 million years ago, and that is oddly specific for such a long time ago. And that is because geologists can indicate the start of this period quite accurately due to a so-called mass extinction event. Fauna and flora died off due to the emplacement of large-scale volcanism, and that erupted 1 million of cubic kilometers of lava. High carbon dioxide increases and global warming of 3 to 4 degrees Celsius was the consequence. And this large event is globally well recognized in the rock record by changes in the type of fossils, but also in the geochemical structure of the rocks. Combined, these are good markers for the end of the Triassic and the start of the Jurassic. The end of the Jurassic has not been defined yet. Geologists traditionally define the base of a stratigraphic boundary based on large biological turnover events, like that mass extinction event. In the last few decades, this has been complemented by geochemical signatures, radioisotopes, astrochronology, and a lot of difficult words in a row that you probably better read on the blog. There's a lot of scientific debate, and there are options, but the so-called golden spike, the exact moment the Jurassic turned into the Cretaceous, is still to be determined. Well, our Finnish town is renowned for its smoked sausage. Quite the contrast in this entry. The town of Morteau is right in the centre of the traditional area of the Thuillier. And this is the typical up to 14 metres high chimney that many older farms still have. A Thuillier is shaped like a wooden pyramid, cuts through the whole house and rests on a 4x4 metre stone base. Ropes are used to adjust the shutters at the top so the chimney draws perfectly and the pork sausage is smoked optimally for 48 hours. This sausage dates back to at least the 16th century. At the time, smoking was the best way to conserve meat. Little by little, the Morteau sausage built a reputation for itself outside of the Franche-Comté region. It now tops the bill of local fine produce alongside Comté, I'll talk about that later, and other cheeses. It could easily have disappeared, however, a distant memory in old recipe books, if the industry had not had the foresight to group together to safeguard the quality, authentic taste, and geographic origin. It is restricted to the Jura, the Doubs, the Haute-Saône, and the Territoire de Belfort, and that is exactly where we race on stage 6, although I seriously doubt we will find this delicacy in the Musettes. Finally, Morteau is also home to the Vélo Club de Morteau. The VC Morteau is one of the top women's teams on the national circuit in France. They've been on the podium of the French Team Cup several times in recent years, and 8 of the riders have gone professional since 2015, including the likes of Juliette Labousse, Evita Musique, and Jade Viel.
All right, we're going to wrap up this podcast now. Thank you so much for listening to the Wheel Talk podcast. If you're not a member of the Escape Collective, maybe consider signing up. We've got amazing content from both Tilda and I up on the site. Tilda, what did you write about today?
I did a little breakdown of what happened with SD Worx, with some insight from some of the key players and some stuff about what they did and didn't hear over the radio. So if you want the kind of inside line on a pretty crazy day for them and why exactly it went so wrong, do have a read of that.
And there's a piece you're working on that I'm quite excited about.
Yes, I'm combining a few of my passions and interests to explore a little bit about femininity in cycling and sport in general, what that means for the riders here, how riders are expressing it, how riders aren't expressing it, because not everyone is a feminine athlete, and what it means to be a woman on the bike. And that makes it sound a lot more serious than it is. Really, it's chatting to riders about their nails and their cute friendship bracelets, and with some nice images to look at, hopefully. So for a semi-serious, semi-fun story, that will be up in the next couple of days.
And semi-serious and semi-fun pretty much describes us to a T. Thanks so much for listening. Sign up at escapecollective.com, and we'll be back tomorrow.